Hi, this is John Rowell for the Rowell Report. Today is Thursday, October 23rd, 2025, and we continue to see before I start, just a welcome to everyone to my channel. Thank you for coming today. And I'm following up on the video from yesterday about the sanctions for being imposed by the United States on Russia. These are these unilateral sanctions being applied without any Security Council recommendation. This is the United States going back into its hegemonic mindset and its unilateral um, mode of operation. So uh, it doesn't seem that there's anyone in the White House who actually thinks through these actions that are taken and why, because they've already applied 30,000 sanctions, 18 sanction packages. I think they've passed the 19th sanction package. None of these are slowing the Russians down on the battlefield. President Trump wants the conflict to stop on the contact line. Russia said that is unacceptable. They've already put forward their conditions back in the year 2022 to make it very clear what it was they want to achieve. And this needs to be the basis point of any discussion that takes place with Russia. Also, there are a lot of misunderstandings in the press, a lot of mischaracterizations, and basically Russia saying we don't care what you say or what you do. You're not going to slow us down um, because we're there to reach the goals we have for this military operation. And just be aware that Russia has not done any general mobilization. If they did a general mobilization, if it really was that urgent, they could call up 5-6 million soldiers. The UK could possibly get 30,000 soldiers on the battle line. So you got the what's left of the Ukrainian army, 30,000 UK soldiers, and you have um, and you could have potentially 5 million Russian troops if they were to call up a general mobilization. So, some people are just not thinking things through. They want to get um, English soldiers on the battle line or close to the battle line. They think that this will turn the tide. Really, who has really thought this through? Poland has already sent in, I think, 1 or 2 thousand soldiers at the beginning of the special military operation, and they were all destroyed. So, I mean, the same thing would happen to the English soldiers if they were sent in, and so we have these leaders who just want to send more and more money to Ukraine, and they're coming up with all these mechanisms to try to steal Russian frozen assets. And of course, Belgium just repeats and repeats and repeats that these funds aren't available. You're not going to use them, and you can't use them as collateral for any loans to Ukraine. So then what the European Union is saying, well, let's give a reparation loan to Ukraine of $140 billion, and Russia can get its money back as long as it pays reparations to Ukraine. So um, anyway, since the European Union doesn't control these funds, they can't really put any conditions on. So let's say they take out a loan of 140 billion to send to Ukraine, then now they're on the hook for paying this money. Do you think Russia is going to pay reparations to Ukraine? Especially if Russia wins and there is no Ukraine left, who are they going to pay? So, these EU officials are in panic mode. They don't think, they're like chicken with their heads cut off, trying to carry out all these lame strategies which aren't going to achieve anything. Um, I'm just looking at a report here from the battle line in Pokrovsk. This is coming from AMK Mapping, their Telegram channel. So anyway, they're saying in the Pokrovsk direction, Russian forces continue to advance in Pokrovsk city, making new progress primarily south of the railway line. In the west, following infiltrations over the railway line, Russian forces were able to consolidate in roughly 40% of the northwestern industrial zone and began attacks further north-northwest. They also crossed the tracks at a new point, capturing new positions in eastern buildings of the industrial zone. To the southeast, Russian forces consolidated further in the Pervomaika district and secured positions in the city center via Prokofyeva and Zhalinishna streets. It is from here that they operate at the railway station and surrounding areas. In the southern part of Pokrovsk, Russian forces finally cleared the forests on the outskirts of the city along the Yubileyny Park and captured the rest of the market district and southeastern part of the Pervomaika district. In the southeastern part of Pokrovsk, the Russians advanced further north through the Sobachivka district, reaching the city center via Samarska Street. They were also able to significantly expand their zone of control in the rest of the district and are approaching the eastern outskirts of the city. To the southeast, Russian forces continue to advance in Novopavlivka. So anyway, this is all win-win-win for Russia and lose-lose-lose for Ukraine. So Ukraine doesn't have soldiers, doesn't have the military equipment that they need. They don't have, the defensive lines. They're running out of everything, and so we're going to send 140 billion into Ukraine. Are they going to make a defensive line made out of money? Are they going to pay people to stand in the defensive line? How are they going to convert money into military progress? And I don't think people are really thinking through. I mean, the war is already lost. The retired UK military expert who was in Iraq and in other parts of the globe, he said that there's nothing the West can send that will save Ukraine. They're basically done. So why are the Western countries still insisting, applying sanctions, putting up opposition to, to sit down and really negotiate with the Russians? Put something on the table that they can accept. Say, okay, you can have Novorossiya. We will legalize it in all international courts and just leave the rest for Ukraine and allow Western forces to go into Ukraine to help rebuild and whatever. So there can be some give and take, but what they've offered in the past is okay. Take the contact line, and then we're basically gonna half the distance, and then you return about halfway back to the Russian border and leave the rest for Ukraine, and we'll call it a day. But we won't legalize it, and we won't accept it in any of the Western countries. And eventually, we will provide what's needed in Ukraine for them to start up this war again and to try to finish it once and for all. So basically, Russia is saying, hey, we're not interested in just putting this conflict on the back burner. Especially, we're on the front foot, we're winning, we're on the offensive, we're taking territory. So why should we? So why should we retreat? Why should we stop? And the times in the past when there has been a ceasefire, Russia's called several ceasefires. Ukraine hasn't respected it. So Russia knows that Ukraine has no interest in respecting any ceasefire. They will continue to shell Luhansk, Donetsk. They will continue to send drones and sabotage teams into the areas that would be assigned as a Russian area. So we know that the MI6 and the CIA took over the Ukrainian security apparatus in 2014. So it's not even the Ukrainians who are running the show, it's the CIA, the MI6, and all the Western NATO apparatus that is entrenched in Ukraine. So Russia knows that. So there's no reason or motivation for them to stop. You could possibly say, okay, we'll give up to the Dnieper River on the outskirts of Kiev. And that certainly may sound interesting to the Russians. Um, but the point is, Ukraine is going to basically be bankrupt and go bust in 2026. They have about a year left of soldiers, um, unless they start heavily mobilizing in the Kiev area among all the uh, children of the oligarchs and um, all the leadership, all these people who have been untouchable, um, they would need to be mobilized, and you might get another month or two. But the basic point is Ukraine has basically until the end of 2026 to either come up with an agreement or to surrender, because if they don't, then their country will collapse. It'll be disaster. It'll be terrible for the people. Um, and of course, the winter is going to be terrible. So, what are they gaining out of this delay? And they say it's Russia that's delaying. Russia doesn't want to come to an agreement. Russia put out a very clear declaration in 2022 how the conflict could be ended. And they had even reached agreements in Istanbul. And so what the West wants is Minsk, and Russia says we don't want Minsk, we don't believe you, we don't trust you, and we're winning, and you're going bankrupt, and you're running out of weapons. So we just continue this a little bit longer, and you'll see European Union countries start to fail financially, asking for IMF bailouts. Their population will get angry. They will swap out that ruling party for another party, and we may get some, you know, alternation or uh, you know, alternating of power in these countries. But basically, the point is this is just kicking a dead horse and hoping that the horse will finally wake up and get up and run. And so there's nothing to do at this point. There's nothing the West can do, can resuscitate Ukraine, can try to bring back its military power. And so then they're starting to think about Tomahawk missiles. But President Putin put out a very clear statement today. Okay, try it and find out. So I think he took that Trump f around and find out, and kind of gave it the Russian version. So um, Russia is developing new weapon systems that are much more advanced than their ballistic or cruise missiles, and so they haven't even tried them out yet. And as this starts to get worse and worse for Ukraine, and Ukraine does more and more irrational and even terrorist actions to try to impact Russia, the worse it's going to go for them. And so, all I can say is that this is like a Greek tragedy. In the Greek tragedy, everyone knew how the story played out and how it would end. And the important point about the Greek tragedy was how they expressed those emotions and those sentiments as they work through this series of misfortunes and to finally get to the conclusion. Um, and so we're seeing something similar in in the Russia-Ukraine conflict. The Ukrainians are working through all these emotions and they're starting to get into panic mode, and you see all these irrational behavior and counterproductive, and they slowly are working their way towards what we know is going to be the final conclusion, which will be basically the end of the Ukrainian state in whatever shape or form that is. And there's nothing anyone can do to stop it. So just like a Greek tragedy, we see this playing out in real time, in real life, and it is a definite tragedy because of the loss of life and everything that's happening to the people. But the Western countries just continue to put fuel in the fire, and they're more than anything else, they're speeding up the end of Ukraine because the more irrational and illogical and um, panicky moves that are taking place in Ukraine, the more Russia will, um, take take this up another couple of notches, and you say, well, they can't take it up another notch. They don't have anything left to do that. Well, um, like Putin said, try it and find out. So we will see how this whole conflict goes, but basically the U.S. is just feeding into its own propaganda, believing its own lies, and the result, especially for all the European countries that have sunk billions in, and they're billions in debt, their populations are in bad shape. Their country is falling apart. For all of these countries, they're not going to get that money back. Where is it going to come from? Is Zelensky going to pay back the loans? Is some central bank in Kiev going to pay back the loans? Is some oligarch going to pay back the loans? All the guarantees they gave, or theoretically that they gave, their rare earths, their mines, their natural resources. Once Russia conquers Ukraine and takes the whole of the country, takes control of its political apparatus, and none of those agreements are going to have any validity. So all those who think that, oh, we'll put money into Ukraine because we'll get it back, you won't. So anyway, I think the Western countries need to rethink their strategy and to try to come to the table with President Putin with something a little bit more interesting than freeze the conflict, stop the war. I don't know what else they've mentioned there, but it's just the same, uh, repetition, rehash of a single concept, which is, freeze the conflict, and that basically so that Western countries can rearm, restock, and relaunch this war against Russia. So Russia says, no, niet, that's not happening. So it's not going to happen. They're just going to, they see that the Western countries have no interest in dialogue. I think President Trump was the last one to try to initiate some contact with Russia, but they saw through all his phony narratives and all his unpersuasive personality that this wasn't the way forward. So anyway, all I can say is that, this is very bad for Ukraine. The Western countries are throwing Ukraine into the fire, and the poor people who are there, they need to wake up and make a decision on their own. And if they don't, it's going to be really bad for a lot of Ukraine as the Russian troops continue to advance. Once they're in Zaporizhia, once they're in Odessa, once they're in Kharkiv, once they get to Sumy, then maybe somebody will say, "Oh, we should have We should have come to an agreement when they hadn't reached Pokrovsk. We could have, uh, you know, finalized the agreement for the four oblasts along with Crimea and been done with it. But then it's going to be eight oblasts plus Crimea, and so one bad decision leads to another, unfortunately, and this is what's playing out. This is our Greek tragedy in real time, in real life, and it's only going to get worse. So, anyway, it'll probably get worse for people here in the U.S. too. If there's going to be more sanctions, that there's going to be more um, blocks in the commerce, in the world commerce. We will see increase in prices that will push up inflation. Inflation will rise faster than people's salaries. It always does when you get in these inflationary periods. And the people here in the United States, they're not going to recover their buying power. And anyway, I think it's not only bad for Ukraine, it's bad for the United States, it's bad for Canada, it's bad for France, it's bad for the UK, it's bad for Germany, but no one wants to see the light. So, I mean, what can you do? Anyway, well, if you've stayed to this point, thank you for joining me today. And if you like this video, please hit the like button, subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you in future videos. Take care. Bye bye.